Isha Guha, the world's best female cricketer. Welcome to Wycombe High TV.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, great to be on. Great to be talking to you, lovely ladies. Great to be able to speak to Wycombe High School once more.
That's great. What do you remember most about being a student at Wycombe High?
What do I remember the most? I remember the long distance running that we used to have to do in our shorts in the freezing cold in the grounds of the school. Playing hockey, basically just all the sports that I used to play at Wycombe High, which we were very fortunate to have some really good matches against various different schools locally and away as well. Playing against Wycombe Abbey was always a tough one, but I remember the school sports were brilliant, but also just some of my best friends. I've got three best friends who we kind of grew up together. We went to school together, so it's just a reminder of those times and being able to kind of, I guess, hang out together, learn, and also the times away from school as well.
And what is the secret recipe? How did you become such a great cricketer?
Well, I think it's a lot harder these days because there's probably a bit more competition. I guess I was put into those scenarios quite early on, of being taken out of my comfort zone, being challenged. So I was playing the Wycombe cricket club with the boys at the age of 8, so the only girl in a boys team, and having to kind of prove myself early on there. And then my dad actually started a women's section at the club. We were trying to find women's teams to play for, and I think my mindset from an early age, and it might have come from school as well, that mindset of always wanting to put myself in a position where it was going to be uncomfortable. So taken out of my comfort zone. How can I perform under pressure? What learnings am I going to gain from these situations? And it's something I've kind of transferred, I guess, to every aspect of my life. You know, any aspect of life where I want to get better, I always throw myself in those situations, however uncomfortable they may be, just because I think that they might help me grow as a person, in that scenario as a cricketer.
That's actually really inspirational. But what were the best bits of your playing, the highlights?
Oh, many. Anytime the team did well, especially if we, had a string of bad performances. I think I was very fortunate to be part of a team that was not very good initially. So we were quite average in 2002 when I first got into the team. We were really far off beating Australia. We sometimes beat New Zealand, and yeah, it was a journey to go from being not right to the best side in the world in 2009, where we basically beat everyone. We won the World Cup in Australia. We won the World T20 here in the UK just a couple of months later, and then we went on to beat the Australians in a one-day series, and it was 5-0. So that was pretty much unheard of, and we became the most successful team in history. So I think just that journey, some of my favorite moments, some key games within that, winning the World Cup. There's no feeling like it when you've all pulled together to create something special, and to do something special when you put in the hard yards. I think that there's tremendous reward with that, and I still, those are times I'll never forget. I'll treasure them forever. And even now, just getting together with those girls, it's something that we've achieved that we can say we did together. So yeah, fond memories.
Your story is especially, inspirational to us as Wycombe High students. And how did you make the transition from such a great player to commentator and presenter?
I guess that kind of happened by accident, because when I was playing, I wasn't a great speaker. I mean, I would do the interviews, but I would say that I wasn't as confident as I am now. I think I fell into it by way of, there was an opportunity to work on the Indian Premier League on ITV4 back in 2011, and it sort of came out of nowhere. In fact, I think they got in touch with me on Twitter, and I went in. They liked that I'd played cricket and I came from an Indian background, and so they just chucked me in there as a presenter. Now you girls are doing an amazing job already. I didn't have the skills that you do, sorry, now. But when I first started presenting, so it was a bit of, knowing which camera to look at, knowing how to act, knowing what questions to ask. It was a bit of an experience. So I just embraced it. I knew that I wasn't very good, but they kept asking me back, and I got loads of opportunities on the back of it. So thankfully, the producers and my boss at ITV saw something in me, and then just this kind of era of women in sport, I think it came at a good time for myself, because they wanted more women in the commentary box presenting cricket. So happened to be in the right place at the right time. But it's been phenomenal being able to work all around the world, get to see how different broadcasts operate. I just tried to take as much on as I could, just so I could develop myself as a broadcaster, and be true to myself as well, not be someone else.
That's actually really amazing. You were recently voted the best female cricket commentator in the world. That must have been amazing when you heard the news.
It was. I kind of get embarrassed by things like that, because I always think that there's so many amazing female commentators, and we all bring something different. I guess what helps me out is that I've been given those opportunities to show what I can do, and I've been able to develop in lots of different aspects of broadcast. So in TV, and you all know this, that there are many different elements to broadcast. You can presenter, as a reporter, as a pundit, in radio as a main TV, so as a main lead commentator, as a summariser. There's so many different elements to it, and I've been lucky enough to kind of work in all of those different aspects. And I feel like I have a good grasp on all of them, which probably sort of helps when it comes to that. And I just, to be honest, commentary in particular, I never thought that I was that good at. My voice has changed drastically over time. It's got deeper and deeper, and I think I've got a better sense of how to use my voice on television and during the cricket. It's less so about what I'm saying, it's about how I'm saying it, because I really back what I'm saying these days. So I think all of those things really helps when it comes to, I guess, people recognizing what you do.
And do you think that the women's game will ever catch up with the men's game in terms of popularity and finances?
Very good question. I think we're on the right path, and we've already seen in the last sort of 5 to 10 years just how far we have actually moved forwards. To think that the women's T20 World Cup final just over a year ago was played in front of 85,000 people, which was I think the second highest attendance for a women's sporting event at the MCG in Australia. It just shows how far we've come, the visibility that the sport is getting now around the world, from broadcasters showing every game of cricket. They can't turn back now, they have to show every match at a World Cup, which I think is brilliant. And it all goes hand in hand, really. The broadcasters showing more. There's a classic chicken and egg situation, because broadcasters would say, oh well, we don't want to cover it because no one's turning up to the games. But no one's going to turn up to the games if you're not investing in the marketing of the sport. So it took I guess the England and Wales Cricket Board to say, right, we're going to break the cycle, we're going to invest in the women's game. All of a sudden we were getting loads more supporters to women's matches, and as a result the broadcasters are coming on board saying, yeah, we want to cover it, and they've made a huge commitment over the last 10 to 15 years to really want to cover it well. I see it in Australia as well now, and I think countries around the world are starting to follow, which is great to see. With that, you need the players going to another level as well, so that there's a real competitive edge on the field. You don't want it to be one-sided all the time, and you're seeing some really great skills. So in every aspect of the game, it is improving. The question is, will we reach equity? I think there are many different elements of equity, not just financially, but it's, you know, being treated in the same manner as the men. And I think we're getting to a point where those things are being recognised, whether it's maternity provisions, whether it's getting family on tour, everything is kind of being looked at. So that's good. Will we see equality by way of pay? I think this is a really important phase now in terms of the commercial side of the game. I think there are a lot of investors that are willing to invest in women's sport and back it from a brand point of view. I think we'll see a real change and a shift in the next 5 to 10 years where brands are going to want to sponsor women's teams specifically. So on the back of that, you'd like to hope that the women will be paid more.
Yeah, that's definitely extremely important in these times. Also, on a more serious note, the England's men team has been in the headlines all this week for the wrong reasons, with even the Prime Minister having his say. What do you think should happen to players who post racist and sexist social media posts, even when they are written 7 or 8 years ago?
First of all, the tweets were unacceptable, and the game rightly has zero tolerance for views such as that. I think it was incredibly unfortunate that it would come out on day one of the summer, the test match of the summer, but that isn't the point really. It's what happens now going forwards. I think it's made everyone sort of stand up and take notice of the issues within the game. Firstly, for someone to have views like that, I think it's important to find out whether he has indeed changed. I think part of the problem is that not a lot of people know Ollie Robinson, and so they don't know him as a person. And so I think it was important to suspend him because there needs to be an investigation as to, you know, what was his mindset during that time. Has he changed? I think there was a lot of focus on him in the test match and how he'd learned a hard lesson, how he was able to still play well even though there was all this noise going on around him. I mean, there's many ways to look at that. That there was a general sense of sympathy for him, as well as scorn because of what he posted. Because it happened 8 years ago, I think you have to give someone a chance to redeem themselves. Yes, it was 8-9 years ago, and I'm a strong believer that people deserve a second chance. And education is really important to make sure he understands why they were horrendous tweets. But at the same time, there wasn't a lot of focus around people that may have been affected by those tweets coming to light. People from a diverse background who he was directly implicating in those messages. And so I think there is an element of let's see how they feel. And has he reached out to them as well to kind of express his regret? So yeah, there's a few things that need to happen before he gets an opportunity to play Test cricket for England again. But yeah, I mean, there'll be a lot of guys in that team probably scouring their tweets just to check that they haven't said anything wrong. I think it's a lesson to all of us that, no matter how you feel about a certain subject, and I'm massively condemning what he wrote, but anything that you think, any kind of views that you have, think before you post, because that could come back to haunt you. Certainly when it comes to when you're out of school and you've gone straight into work, or you've gone to university and you're trying to get a job, you know, employers will look at your social media history. So it is important to make sure that, firstly, you know, you haven't acted in a manner that will affect your chances of getting work. So yourself as to what you should be thinking in circumstances, and why it's bad to say certain things.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on this deep topic. However, on a more positive note, if there's one thing you should do as a successful sports presenter and commentator for aspiring presenters, what would you feel that should be?
Well, firstly, I think anyone can do it. I really believe that anyone has the ability to become a presenter or a commentator. I think it's about being true to yourself. Like I said, I didn't like my voice at all. I thought it was horrendous. But it's kind of, it's grown, and my tone of delivery and everything around it has changed over the last 5 to 10 years. So be true to yourself. Don't try and be someone else. Be your own person. Find who you are as a person, and kind of understand the different elements of broadcast. What does it take to be a good presenter? In my opinion, it's not about you, it's about your guests. So you're making them feel comfortable in a situation. You want to get the best out of them, and you're basically you're the mediator. So you're trying to keep the audience involved, make sure they're getting all the information, hear the different sides of a story. As a pundit, don't sit on the fence. You have to have an opinion about something. As a commentator, it's, you know, there's different things that you need to be a radio broadcaster versus a TV broadcaster, because on television you could, you know, the people watching can see everything, so you want to add to the pictures. And then on top of that, it's, you know, I think the best broadcasters in cricket really love the sport. I mean, they're constantly just looking at all the different kind of matches that are being played around the world, and that's what I do. I mean, I keep on top of what's going on in world cricket, all the key issues, and yeah, there's a lot of preparation that does go into it. You're having to find out about the players, their stories, what sort of form they're in, some key matches that, you know, were significant to them in the past, and the history of the game. I mean, there's so much history when it comes to cricket, but that's just cricket. I did the Olympics 4 years ago, and that was, again, a bit of a whirlwind experience. So there's so much to know. When you think there's 28 or so sports being played at any Olympics, it's, and a lot of the time you might not know about a sport. So it's that was a really incredible experience, being able to just kind of sponge all that information in. I guess it's a bit like when you're cramming for an exam, you're just trying to sponge all that information in, so you know roughly what to say. So yeah, that's what I'd say are the 2 or 3 most important things.
What advice do you think you'd give to any current Wycombe High students who are aspiring to be you and follow in your footsteps?
I think, look, I never wanted to become a presenter. That was never a goal of mine, purely because I just didn't think that was a possibility for a woman, or I just didn't think I was good enough to do it either. So it's great if you can get a head start. The thing that I started doing early on in my career, my broadcasting career, was watch a lot of people. So watching the best people do their thing. So the likes of Matt Smith, who I worked with initially, there's a guy called Harsha Bogle who is one of the best broadcasters around. He comes from India, but looking at everyone, I looked at all the different commentators and what their strengths were and what they brought to the table, and I tried to think about, okay, what can I do better? Currently now I work at the BBC, so the likes of Claire Balding and Gabby Logan. I've been very fortunate to be able to kind of spend some time with Gabby, and I just think she's an absolute legend. But just being able to watch them in action and how they handle certain situations, I think is really useful. But always keep in mind that you still need to be yourself and to not necessarily copy someone else. Even though it's good to kind of see how they handle different kind of situations, I think that's something that's very important.
Isha, Guha, thank you for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Amani and Maryam. It's I hope. Well, I look forward to seeing you both presenting the Olympics at some stage.
We'll see one day, maybe, Maryam.
Yeah.